Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today we have the awesome MJ with us. Hi, MJ, how are you?
Hey Saskia, I'm really good, thank you. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. And thank you for sparing your time today to come along and share some of your story and your expertise with us. Really appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's okay. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, I'm MJ. I'm based in London, have been for, or at least around London for most of my life. Um, been playing music too for most of my life. Started off singing and playing guitar and playing bass, and one of those teenage people that just wanted to be in bands and become a rock star. And here I am, sort of 20 plus years later, still making music.
Well done, you. Well done, you. And how long have you actively been doing music for? Has it been since a child? Has it been a passion of yours, or did you get it through education?
Yeah, a little bit of everything, really. So, education was important to me in some ways, in terms of introducing me to different kinds of music. But I grew up in a very musical household with musical family, and I have an uncle, for example, that forced a guitar on me when I was about 10, and I wasn't quite ready for it. And I found bass guitar quite soon after, but I was always singing. And then I started playing in bands as soon as possible. My education stopped at A level. But I managed to scrape I think it was a C in music tech.
I did as well,
And,
actually. Well, yeah,
huh?
I did music tech as well, actually, at GCSE. I remember those days.
Yeah, it was very early days of Cubase and things like that. And at least it gave me some grounding in how to use technology for recording music, which I've been doing ever since.
Mhm. Excellent. Thank you so much. And what kind of challenges and barriers have you found accessing the music industry and obviously being non-binary as well? Do you see a lot of representation? Do you think we've got struggles and barriers, or do you think it's quite easy going?
Um, to be honest, I've grown up as a white British male,
Yeah.
and I'm not in the group which needs the most attention. I'm the group which gets the most attention traditionally, especially in the music world.
Yeah.
And so, there's still a lot of challenges to address that. Sometimes I also feel like I should be doing more to try and bring awareness to that. I've really focused more on climate change and sustainability in terms of my messaging around what I'm doing. And there isn't a lot of that in the music industry either, because it's such a serious message and it kind of has to be balanced with, the fact that it is quite a serious message, but people want to have a good time when they're listening to music, or they want to feel something positive generally when they're at a concert, or, something like that. So, for me, I think I have been very fortunate. And, the short answer would probably be that my own anxiety and those kinds of barriers that I've imposed upon myself have really been the issue for me in keeping it, in being sustainable with my music, and keeping on going, really maintaining that, immense confidence that you need to have in the music industry. And, and I think I would say to that as well that while there are more and more artists now talking about their own mental health, there is definitely a lack of that in the general industry. And we know how it is as content creators. You kind of have to be active all of the time. Otherwise, you're scared that people will forget about you and go on to find the next great music, So, I think it's really important that we start waving some flags around about mental health and sustainability generally.
100%. And how do you kind of deal with your anxiety? Like, because there's a lot of networking, isn't it? It's very sociable at times as well as the social media. So, what kind of tools and techniques would you use to try and help you with your anxiety?
I am probably, or at least people have told me that I'm an ambivert. So I do have the ability to be sociable and talk about things with people and meet new people and do all the networking stuff. But at the same time, after that, I need some time off. I will need to have the next day to kind of recover and look after myself a little bit more, and maybe do a bit of doom scrolling. But at the same time, the music that I make is, there's a bit of a loop there, because, my feelings and thoughts influence the music that I'm making.
Yeah.
Whether that's motivating me to do it or sometimes demotivating me in situations. But when I play, that's such a healing process anyway, as I'm sure every music maker listening will attest to.
Yeah.
And you too, of course.
Yeah. Thank you. And tell us a little bit more about your musical projects you've got coming up and what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So we've just had the last concert of the year, which was on Friday over in Clapton in East London. That went really well. So we'll have a little bit of a break now over Christmas. We, give everybody an opportunity to start thinking about new songs, and we just want to start writing some new songs in the new year and recording as well. We'll probably be back in March 2025 with a new set, and we're still developing some of the kind of visual stage show stuff. I want it to be kind of interesting multimedia performance kind of thing going on, rather than just three people on stage with guitars and such like, because everybody's seen that before. But yeah, there's lots of ideas percolating, and we'll be back at least with a new release in March as well.
Yeah, excellent. And what's your thoughts and feelings around equality, diversity, inclusion at the moment in the music industry? How do you feel about that?
I feel like, in a way, there's three different areas or three different kind of pockets of things going on at the moment. There are, as I say, more people speaking about mental health and sustainability within the music industry. At the same time, there's still very much a focus on from the very commercial end of music. There's still a very much a focus on solo artists, and so bands. I mean, playing in a group, we are kind of neglected a little bit in terms of the major labels and what's being had the representation there in the really commercial side of music. And I think a lot of that is because of how much easier it is to produce solo artists.
Yeah,
So that kind of traditional. Sorry.
it's cheaper as well, isn't it? Especially for the flights and everything else as well, on top if you're touring and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot cheaper. It's easier to bring songwriters in, whereas bands traditionally want to write their own songs, and there isn't necessarily going to be so much consistency there. Plus, bands have musical differences. They're more likely to fall apart than a solo artist. Although, going back to mental health, anybody can have that breakdown. So I think I can't remember what the third thing was that I was going to say, but I'm sure it was very insightful. I just think that going back to what I said before, I think we need to be more aware of people's feelings and their sustainability in the industry. And I think I'd like to see more variety again back in the. I don't expect, because of what we've just said, I don't really expect that will happen in the charts, but I'd like to see more of that. And I think a big part of that is live music scenes in different towns and cities. We have lost a lot of live music venues in the last few years, and it's happening every week. And those are the places that give people, whether they're solo artists with a backing track, someone with a guitar, a band, or something even more, performance based, like more avant-garde kind of stuff. Like, we need more spaces for that to happen. We need more inclusivity for whatever people are doing. I kind of think about because I'm a big comedy fan as well, and think about the alternative comedy scene back in the 80s. And I don't know how that was around the globe, but in London, there started to be a lot of these very interesting acts. Some of them were like really weird, or not many people would be interested in it. There was one guy that he just came on stage with a block of ice, and he melted that block of ice. He was called Iceman. And you don't see anything as uh, as just I mean, what better word than alternative, I suppose. We see so many bands and solo artists and in all sorts of different genres of music, but we don't see that kind of performance side of things anymore. Everything seems to be more like it has to have a commercial
Yeah,
framework. There has to be some pipeline for how you're going to monetize it, and that is that is a situation which means that people's actual like expression, self-expression, creativity, and everything that comes from the heart and the head is being redirected down some kind of framework of monetization, or all this language, with business speak stuff, So
yeah,
I think that we need to start to ignore the commercial a little bit more, do what your heart tells you to do, and give room to different people, because I think that we are, to some extent, as artists, musicians, and creative people, we are gatekeeping a little bit the craft.
yeah,
Um, think everybody can, everybody can make a piece of music, everybody can make a piece of art. They just need the time and the guidance sometimes, or maybe like we talked about education before. If you don't have that education, then you're not going to be able to see yourself as, what's that phrase, that you have to see it to be it, or what's
Yeah, see
yeah,
yourself to be it. Yeah, that's right. And that kind of
exactly.
empowers you as well, doesn't it? When you see people going along that path. And I think one of the barriers for me has been financial barriers. I think I've got all the other stuff, but sometimes, just getting in a studio and getting musicians together can be quite expensive as well, right? So you've got to know the right
Yeah.
people in the right places as well. So that's where the education comes in, I think.
Yeah, and background too, and ability to just be, put yourself into those social situations. And for me, it took me such a long time to do that. I mean, I remember when I was about 18 going to one of these BBC auditions, and it was like Britain's Got Talent or one of these things. I
Yeah,
think it was called, Let Me Entertain You, and it didn't last very long. And I
right.
remember getting there and just thinking that I didn't belong. I was put into a category, there were different categories like dancers and comedians and so on and so forth. And, they hadn't said, don't come if you're a musician, but I ended up being put in the category of the group of people and one of them was a puppeteer, and another one was like maybe making balloon animals or something like that. It was very like diverse.
Okay.
Um, and ultimately, I didn't stand a chance because I wasn't what they were looking for. And that's fair enough. But at 18, nobody had said to me, look, if you get rejected from these kinds of things, you just have to keep doing it. And so it took me a long time to recover from those kinds of events. And so, a lot of it is about building up resilience, and it's taken me a long time to get there. But those kinds of things, like that self-belief and the resilience and the people supporting you, whether that's like your educative background or just, seeing your heroes, we need a lot of that
And I
to
think you
keep
touched
going.
on something that we've not really touched on much is belonging. Because I think that's something that really I benefit from is feeling part of something, feeling part of a community, feeling safe, not always being respected, but, meeting great like-minded creatives, being safe and, just enjoying what you do because it is a passion for me. It's more of a passion than anything else. And I think it's just about following your heart and finding the right people as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely is. And, for me, I think one of the most important things has been having bandmates around and friends that come to your shows and say, well, you guys are getting better each time. That's really lovely to hear. And
Yeah.
or taking photos. I have a friend Gary that comes to a lot of my gigs and takes photos, and everybody needs social media content now. So,
Okay.
you
That's
know,
all good. That saves you some pennies, doesn't it?
exactly.
Um,
It is a lot about who you know. And, I also had the really amazing opportunity. I'd been on the distributor Spin Up for a little while, and they were doing some networking sessions. One of them was with students from the Abbey Road Institute, and so they had access to actual Abbey Road studios. And having met some of these people, so did I. And it's like blew my mind that I could actually get in there and record.
you got to
And again, like coming back to the
recorded. Yeah, very nice.
yeah,
Nice.
and coming back to the money, your studio might cost you sort of £500 a day or something like that. And those guys were able to do it for free. So again, the more, I guess it's taken me a long time to learn that the more you get out there and meet people, the more you're going to make connections with people,
Right.
and you help them and they help you, and it's really sustain. Again, coming back to that word sustainability, like that's the heart of it, really.
Yeah. And what's the band's name? I don't think I asked you what the band was called.
Yeah, I'm not very good at the whole self promotional thing. Get it straight in, right? Get it straight in. Make sure you're following on Instagram. It's called Temporal Comet,
Okay.
and it existed in a few different guises since 2015, 2016, and now we're a three-piece. I sing and I play guitar, and we have a bass player and a drummer who I've just encouraged to start singing as well. So yeah, it's all
That's
happening.
You're making moves, positive moves, which I love. And what would you like to see improve in the next few years in the music and entertainment industry?
The most important thing for me really is about these music venues. There's a lot of stuff that we've touched on about inclusivity and connectivity, but if you don't have these opportunities to go out there and hone your craft, if you've just started, if you've just written your first song and you need to, well, you do need to go out there and find out what what it does to people, what it says to people, and build up that confidence in playing it. And again, if we're losing so many of these music venues, there's so many people that just don't have that opportunity. And again, it has become quite commercial these days. There are too many promoters that there are still some amazing promoters. I mentioned where we played at Biddle Brothers in Clapton on Friday. There's a guy there. His promotion company is called Sad House Daddy, and he's there 3-4 nights a week putting on free music for people, and finding bands, 3-4 bands each night. And he's so passionate about the nights and about putting the right bands on together. Sometimes you go to a gig and they've shoehorned a metal band in with like a trip hop artist, and it's like, uh,
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, people have to earn a living as well. So I do understand that promoters can have to put money first a lot of the time. We live in a very commercial city, and if things aren't making the money, they aren't going to survive very long.
Yeah.
But maybe a lot of the problem is that there isn't so much room for the DIY scene as there used to be, and there isn't so much money coming from government to support music. Like culture in general in Britain has really suffered in the last 15 years, and or probably more. And uh, and again, things have to make there has to be a return on investment for you to see the grant in the first place or whatever. So, I think we just need to have a big think about how important that kind of culture is to us. What I'm worried about in the future is and I'm a bit of a cynic. I wrote a blog article a couple of months ago about what I'd read around Spotify and AI music.
Yeah.
There's a lot more AI music on Spotify than there was even 6 months ago, and there's a huge amount of stuff being released. I listened to a webinar recently, and they talked about there being between, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure you know the deets as well, like between 100 and 200,000 songs released on Spotify every day now.
1,000, I think they were saying a day, but it might have gone up from there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't even know how much of that is created by people,
Right.
or how much they've created that, nowadays. I'm not anti AI. I think we have to embrace technology. What I'm worried about is that Spotify will embrace it to the point where they don't need us unsigned artists and smaller artists anymore, because they already don't really want to monetize. They don't want to pay for the streams that we have been getting. They've demonetized everybody since April this year who didn't have 1,000 streams on each of their songs.
YouTube's done that as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, same
Huh.
thing. Yeah. So YouTube's done the same thing. And it's really funny you say that, because I was reading an article last week, I think it was, and one of the artists is literally selling pictures of her bum on OnlyFans to pay for her
Hmm.
rest of her tour.
I can't remember her name.
Ash, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Who's been around for ages, but yeah, I've seen her talking about basically losing money going on tour, and
And then
and even people like, did you see Rod Stewart said that he was going to lose like 300 grand from playing Glastonbury next year?
way. No, I didn't see that one actually. And this is something else that I did see that I'd love to get your thoughts and feelings on. In France, they take £1 for every £10 of ticket sales and put that back into
Mhm.
grassroots venues. That's something they're talking about here in the UK. Do you think that would help us at the moment and make sure that we do sustain our grassroots venues?
Yeah, I mean there has to be more funding into grassroots, because it's where you start. It's where you start, and unless you're a what's the sort of manufactured artist, as there are around these days, although it's a lot more covert these days. I think it's not like the 90s and early 2000s where you put a pop band together and they lasted 3 years. But those people may not need to start in the grassroots, in the small venues and stuff, but most of us do. and it's the best way to get out there and see if your stuff is working. So, you
Yeah.
know, but it's a very different landscape. It's not like you're going to get A&R people coming down to these grassroots venues to fish you out and escalate you into the mainstream. But we still need them, and you know, ultimately people shouldn't be. I don't have the same attitude about it as I did when I was 20 anyway. It's not like I'm desperate to do this as my career. I think we all have to diversify anyway and be able to do different things, and add more strings to our bow, because we're stronger people if we do that anyway. But I do have a different attitude to it now, and it's more for fun than it probably was 20 years ago. So there doesn't necessarily have to be an end goal. I'm enjoying playing my songs for people, and if they enjoy them too, that's amazing. And obviously it supports what I'm doing online, and the two kind of coexist, and that's really the idea. So yeah, the grassroots is super important for me, and the money has to come from somewhere, but we do also need to find other ways to bring people back, to be a little bit more. I'm a hypocrite, but to be a little bit more risk averse,
Yeah.
rather than saving your money and spending 100 quid to go and see Paul McCartney or Dua Lipa. I could go to 10 concerts for that amount of money. 10 small grassroots venues and see 50 bands or something. Something like that. Don't ask me the maths. I'm not very good at the maths.
Neither am I.
But but I would rather do that than go to the stadium shows now. And I'd encourage more people to just kind of take a punt on a band and see what it's like, because you'll get something from it, especially if you're a creator too. You'll go and see something and think about what you could be doing or how that inspires you.
Yeah, definitely. I love that bit of advice. Thank you. I was also going to say to you, the music industry is full of quite a lot of older white men. Do you think that that has an impact on the cultural and age differences, that we can kind of initiate this change around equality, diversity, inclusion? Do you think it's harder for the older people to understand, to get it a little bit more than what we do as a bit younger and the younger generations do?
And I feel like I'm in the middle now.
Mm.
I wouldn't call myself a young person,
Oh,
but
you were older.
but I do interact with actual young people on Instagram or when I go to gigs and stuff
Yeah,
like that, because a lot of the time they're the people that are really passionate about music. There's a few different strands to this, I suppose. Like, part of it is, yes, definitely the legacy of the white male in the music industry, or in any industry, is still felt to the point where I think it's really affected our culture. I have I think my issue with it sometimes is that we've got into a situation where the world has become more masculine and more sexualized, uh, and that sells.
yeah,
And I think that's a shame. I think there should be more of a diversity of different, of different people, different representations of different people along that spectrum. Regardless of who they are, what they look like, where they come from. I don't really know how we do that, because I think commerce and that sort of sexualization are so hand in hand now. But at the same time, I do think a lot of the younger generation, they are eschewing that. They're not really interested in those sorts of role models, or gender stereotypes, and so on and so forth.
yeah,
And we just need more people mixing it up and feeling unafraid to do that.
yeah.
And I think that if we can get some more balance in the culture, then it will be possible for us to break away from these kind of, yeah, sexualized views
Fingers
of
crossed.
the world.
Yeah, I hope so. I was also going to say to you as well, like, have you ever, like, been in the music industry, what do you kind of do to protect your mental health and to ensure that you look after your mental health, especially being in a band? What kind of tips and hints would you use for that?
Yeah. I don't know about tips and hints. You know, I've been very fortunate that I could see a therapist in the last few years and work on some of these things, like try and find some strategies for things. A lot of it is about taking time for yourself and really finding out, really listening to your body, I guess, about how much energy you have for something and when you really need to take a step back. You know, and again, I'm very fortunate that I have a job which allows me to do that as well. My day job allows me to do that as well. I work in marketing. um and so I'm able to balance those different sides of my life.
Brilliant.
uh, but yeah, I don't know if I have tips and tricks. I think you know, the more you carry on doing it, the more you learn. But you also need to be mindful of when to stop and just take that step back, right?
Yeah, 100%. I've had to do it several times. I'm doing so much, and then all of a sudden I feel burnt out, and I'm like, right, I need to take a little break here. I need to step back for a little bit. So I've stopped going to a few networking events, doing a few other bits. But sometimes I think, especially where it's the social side of it, it can be really take a lot of energy, actually. You know what I mean? And seeing lots of different people, and then you have to absorb it all and take it all in. So it can be quite
Yeah.
a lot of times, but I love what I do. So I'm not complaining, but I feel that sometimes that I need to just take a little step back and just look after myself, self-care. I do meditation, gratitude and stuff like that. So it really, really helps for me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The gratitude thing is a really good tip.
Yeah.
I was you've jogged my memory there. I try to write a little journal every week
Yeah.
and to kind of point out to myself the good things that I've done in the last week,
Yeah.
focus more on the positive because I think my natural inclination is to focus more on the negative, and that's probably a human thing. I'm sure we're all like that.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you not going to your networking events, I think it kind of takes a lot of bravery in order to do that because you think, what am I missing out?
Hmm.
I didn't speak to that person last time. I meant to go and say hi to them and see how they're doing, and now I'm not going to get the opportunity. And you start feeling like, it's the FOMO, isn't it, to some extent, but also guilt tripping yourself into doing things sometimes because you feel that you should.
Yeah.
But yeah, you listen to your inner self and
Yeah.
make sure that you're getting the breaks.
It's a very fast-paced environment, I think, and sometimes it's just about understanding that, because I'm always focused on where I'm going rather than what I've done. So it's actually
Yeah.
really interesting because a lot of the time I don't give myself credit for what I do. I'm just doing it, and I'm just trying to get to. It's like climbing a mountain, and you're continually thinking, "I'm nearly there," and you're not quite there yet. You're nearly there. Well, you're not quite there yet, and it can be a little bit frustrating. But I think it's also about
Mm.
patience, as well, and having that patience and understanding that that's the way the industry works. So it's not a personal thing, it's just the way it is.
Totally.
Yeah, that's for me anyway. And what were your major wins and successes that you would like to share with us as well before you go? Any major wins
From
and
this year, hmm. Well, it has been, for me musically, it has been a good year.
good?
I probably haven't played as many shows before this year as we did this year, and we did at least one a month this year. Um, Having that consistency is amazing for the band, and everybody feels like, that we're making progress and maybe writing better songs and all that kind of stuff. So being able to see those successes is as important as having them. Um, and then I've released three songs this year, which is more again than I ever did previously. One of them was a re-release of a track that got removed when Spin Up, that distributor, decided to fold.
All right.
So I had to put that back out again. But yeah, couple of new songs and continuing a project which is kind of very close to my heart. I had a friend who I played with way back in the day, one of the first bands that I played with. And he was like a couple of decades older than me, amazing songwriter, and a really influential guy called Mark Astronaut. I played in the band The Astronauts with him when I was like 16, 17. And we stayed friends. Unfortunately, he died of some health problems a couple of years ago, and he was one of these people who I really felt his music didn't get enough attention. And so I decided I'd record a few of the songs of his that I really loved. So I put one of those out this year as well.
Yeah.
called Robot Ways.
Okay.
So just yeah, want to make sure that his memory is
Oh,
front and
beautiful.
center.
I love that.
Yeah.
Bring a tear to my
Oh,
eye. I'll stop it. Oh, that's awesome. How kind and sweet
sorry.
of you. No, don't apologize. It's absolutely fine.
They're
Say,
they're amazing songs. So yeah, check them out.
send me the link of those and I'll put them in the description below. But if any of the listeners or viewers would like to connect with you, follow you, or listen to your music, how could they do that?
Yeah, best thing will be Instagram. I'm there 10 hours a day,
Okay.
talking to new people that I've met, and I really love having conversations about music, not just my own. And so yeah, come and find me on Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, there's the website temporalcomet.com, and there's all sorts of places you can get in touch from there. So yeah, please come and say hi.
They'll all be in the description. And thank you ever so much. I've enjoyed our chat and I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you ever so much.
Me too, Saskia. It was lovely. Thank you again so much for having me, and have a great one.
Yeah, and you too. Bye.
Bye.